I don't know if I'm gonna be available because I'm waiting for the bus. But this video is gonna be the reality of adoption, or supposed adoption. Even when, like, I don't know, you're being like adopted, it's like a adoptive grandma or sister type thing. If you're like older or whatever. So I feel like the Let Me Help You Lunatic videos, especially with the situation with Miss S and J, is one example for if you're like older. Which actually, that reminds me, I don't think I ever went over the elder trafficking thing in that video where I went over the sex spy thing with that boy who was being trafficked by the U.S. military. I just thought about that because I could definitely say that the things that Jay had experienced are definitely elder trafficking. Although I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch the video, but I feel like that term could apply to her situation. And I'm sure there's many different types, but anyways, before I go on a rant, one thing that I had somebody tell me a couple weeks ago, which is already something that I thought about before, is that never be adopted by a woman with a boyfriend, because the boyfriend is going to try to molest you, and then the woman's going to start neglecting you because she's going to be jealous of you, and she's going to kick you out eventually. That's actually something I had already thought about, but I had a lady tell me that. And that's definitely not likely to happen every time, but that's just something to, like, think about. And so, then another thing. Guys typically don't really care that much about, like, a lot of stuff. That's also why they can leave their own kids even easier. And they definitely don't care about somebody else's kids. So, I mean, well, of course not all of them, but, like, this is, like, speaking in general. So, like, if a dude is doing what I would call Let Me Help You Lunatic type stuff, and he's talking about some, we gotta help this kid and we gotta do something for them, and typically they're not really gonna want to do anything to really help. They're gonna want to, like, drop you off at some organization, which that's not how that works anyways, but it's gonna be some bull crap and some weird discriminatory mess with that anyways. But if a dude's doing all that, he definitely just wants to, like, molest you or, like, drag you into some type of relationship, because guys typically don't even care that much about their own kids, let alone somebody else's kids. So yeah, Let Me Help You Lunatics are typically women. Any dude that's playing a Let Me Help You Lunatic type of role just has, like, some sexual agenda. Then another thing, I already have all the Let Me Help You Lunatic videos, so I'm not really going to go back over, like, all the things that go along with that. But, like, if somebody already has kids, you're always going to be reminded that, like, you're just the person that they decided to be nice to and bring around or do some stuff for. You're always going to be reminded that you're not their kid and that they don't really give a crap about you. If they don't already have kids, then, like, it's going to be a lot of stuff with it that's, like, manipulative and a lot of, like, subconscious manipulative type stuff with the whole situation. Like, for example, I've mentioned before how, like, I'm never around people my age and I'm always around people decades older than me, and it's always been that way my whole life. So, like, there was a time where I was in one Let Me Help You Lunatic type situation, and the lady didn't really want to be seen around me because she didn't want to be seen as, like, hanging out with a kid because she can't find friends her own age. So stuff like that can be an issue. Like, you're always going to be reminded, if you, like, always have older friends or whatever, that they either just are around you because they pity you and they feel bad for you or something like that, or because they just want to, like, use you to make themselves feel better. and to do stuff for you, or pretend that they're going to do stuff for you that nobody would do for them when they were your age. Like, I've even been in a recent situation of somebody that, like, I did a lot of stuff for, like, from emotional support to, like, helping them with food and sharing food with them and cooking stuff for them. And there's even a whole situation where, like, they called me one day and they were like, I'm at Universal Studios, what do you want? Which is very trifling. And then, like, pretending that they want to do stuff that they know that they really don't want to do and aren't gonna do. Like, trying to get me to make an Amazon wish list just so they can, like, breadcrumb and future fake and pretend that they're gonna give me stuff that I need when they know that they're not going to. And people like this will also play games with you where, like, they'll ask you to, like, so, like, for example, they'll ask you to make the Amazon wish list. They'll tell you to send them the wish list, which you really shouldn't do it anyways. You really shouldn't talk to these types of people. But they'll tell you to send them the list, and then when you send them the list, they won't respond. Then they'll ask you to send it to them again and say that they didn't get it because they're not reading your messages anyways, which this even goes back to something I learned a long time ago. When it comes to, like, people that don't really like you, or even you and the other person being in, like, trauma type relationships, and, like, you're only talking to each other because you have no one else to talk to, and really neither one of you like each other. Like, you know they don't like you, and you don't really want to talk to them because you know that they don't like you. And it's manipulation on both ends, and it's codependency on both ends. But I learned a long time ago, like, how a lot of these, like, over the phone, not that I didn't, like, meet these people in person first, but these over the phone type situations where, like, people don't really read your messages, and then they'll, like, ask you stuff, and then you'll, like, tell them, and then they don't read your messages, so they don't see it. Then they'll ask you the same thing again, and then you'll be like, well, I just told you that 3 times. And it can really get annoying. And the thing about it is that the people don't really like you, they just feel bad for you at most. And I already have a whole video about how pity is manipulation. The last thing you want is for somebody to pity you or claim they pity you. That's not something that you want. They're just going to be getting used and played with. And it's like, when you're age regressed and traumatized, it does seem like, to a certain extent, people that are decades older than you, like, are nicer to you, some of them, than people your age would be. But it's like, it definitely seems like they play a lot more mind games. And at the end of the day, they just see you as, like, a younger sibling, or like a kid or something. Or their kid, I mean. Or their kid to a certain extent, because they don't really give a crap about you. And it just causes, like, a lot of mess. A lot of mess in games. It's really not even worth it, to be honest. And one of the things about Let Me Help You Lunatics is that it really can get, like, very annoying, and really to a point where it seems like reactive abuse almost. When you have a Let Me Help You Lunatic that's, like, claiming they want to adopt you, and they'll claim that they're going to, like, get you something to eat if you need the food or whatever. And then you'll kind of end up in these situations where you're, like, begging somebody for something to eat, because they'll, like, play these games where they'll be like, yeah, I'll get you something to eat. And then they don't respond for, like, a week, and then they say they'll get you something to eat again. And it's like, I don't really think talking to people when you're, like, in not ideal situations is even worth it. It's just going to be like getting used, being seen as vulnerable, getting taken advantage of, essay, different stuff like that. Nothing good really comes out of it. It's better to be alone, because you'll just end up, like, being put in situations where you're begging people for basic needs. And then, of course, there's always people that'll say, nobody's going to save you, which I already know that. And people survive off the kindness of others and stuff like that. But realistically, people that are saying that they want to adopt you are playing games. And it even goes back to the thing with foster care, which CPS is not an adoption agency anyways. It's being homeless and being trafficked. But there's a reason that people don't adopt kids, especially if they're not a baby, or at least under, like, 7 years old. people want like a CRISPR baby. They want a kid that they feel like is attractive, that they can pick the features for, and that they can like design on their own, and pretty much they want a robot or a doll. That's the point I'm getting at. So like, if anybody's coming to you saying that they want to adopt you, it's always going to be some mess. And even when it comes to like people wanting to take you into their house, it doesn't always have to be like they're going to be manipulative and abusive and like a full-blown cult, but bare minimum, it's always like a catch-22. Like, they want to quote-unquote adopt you or foster you, but they don't really see you as their kid, and there's always going to be some weird stuff with it. Like, if they're not full-blown abusive or like sexually abusive, it's kind of like, what's a good example? Like how people that have dirty houses always want to like bring people over, and they always want to offer people food, and they like to play stupid and dumb, like they don't understand why nobody wants to come to their house and why nobody wants their food because they're dirty. Stuff like that. Like if they're not abusive, then like maybe like you find out that they have like rats and they or something like that, and then like they don't clean up, different stuff like that. It's always like a catch-22. Even if there's not like weird sexual stuff going on or some other like culty manipulative stuff. Even if it's not like the voodoo cult lady type situation. Which I still have that the part 1 of that video re-uploaded. Which I was forced into that by law enforcement anyways. Like, I don't know, like somebody said they want to like adopt you or something, and then you agree to the situation after they talk you into it, because that's what these types of people always want to do. They always want to talk you into stuff, like they try to beg and manipulate you into staying with them, and it's always really weird. Like I feel like, I know people say they may like really care and they may really feel bad and they may really want to help, but it's like, I feel like if somebody doesn't have like some weird motive, at least subconsciously, then at least to a certain extent where like the usual thing I talk about with the whole good deeds outweigh the bad deeds Catholic thing, which also goes back to Aleister Crowley's Do Without Will, and they feel like doing good things will help them work their way into heaven. It's like it's typically something like that. Actually, no, I don't even remember what I was saying. What was I gonna say? I don't think that's what I was gonna say, but anywho, I'm just gonna keep going. It's always like some weird backstory thing, like they want to adopt you, but you can't use their address to get an ID, you can't use their address to get mail, and it's like, one of the things about having a home address is supposed to be so like, you're not seen as like homeless, and especially the younger you are, it's actually kind of worse because people feel a certain type of way about you if you're, like I mentioned before in some other video, if you're a certain age and you're really young and you already have certain things going on, people already see you as a lost cause. They already see you as somebody who's not gonna make it. Kind of like that thing people say where they're like, this kid was bound to fail because they already had a lot of bad cards dealt, or with a family like this they're bound to end up in prison, stuff like that. That's how people see you already. And it's like, people that claim they want to help people, or that claim different things like this that revolve around wanting to quote-unquote help people, it's always like some weird stuff behind it. Like they want to help you, except they want to help you until, and it's like you wouldn't even be able to get like half a sandwich out of these types of people. Like you're lucky if they would even like share a pack of ketchup with you. That's exactly why I say, though, you do not want to straddle the fence. You're either going to live in the wilderness... Wait a minute. Hold up. You're either going to live in the wilderness, and you're going to forage and live off the land and live off the grid and fish and hunt and stuff. Or you're going to be in the Matrix. If it's not working out for you, you might as well live off the grid, because straddling the fence does not work. If you don't have parents in the family, the Matrix just isn't going to work for you. Or you're going to be one of those people that's always having to run after chomos, always having to look for boyfriends and girlfriends, and sexual predators, and being taken advantage of, ending up in labor trafficking, living on abusive farms where they actually stop recording, but you're going to be living on abusive labor trafficking roofer farms where like they don't feed you and you work for free and they take advantage of you and beat on you. It's even a lot of racial stuff, but like these labor trafficking roofer farm type jobs where they pretty much get you in the middle of nowhere to take advantage of you, stuff like that. It really doesn't work out, and straddling the fence does not work. You really can't straddle the fence. If it's not going to work and you don't have the type of support system for it, it's not going to work. I wouldn't advise trying to like play games with yourself and pretend that it's going to work and all that stuff. So try number 2. Something that I may have mentioned before is that a lot of people want to be in my position, or some people I'll say. But then again, maybe I could say a lot, because a lot of people do have the subconscious jealousy of people that are homeless or they label off as homeless because they feel like you've managed to escape being in the system that people are told that it's impossible to survive without being in. But anyways, I mentioned before, I think, how like back when I was in Oregon, I had this one dude who was like 25 or something, who was like shocked that I was able to like get on a bus and go to Sandy and go to Mount Hood from Portland. And he was talking about how his parents never let him go anywhere, and how he only recently started being allowed to leave the house just to go to work. And when I was in California, I had this one girl telling me about how she couldn't go anywhere because she was a Muslim girl and she wasn't allowed to do anything, and how like her and her friend used to have these like daydreams about how when they would get older they were going to go to uni and they were going to like be able to do stuff, and how they realized that they would actually never be allowed to do anything because they were Muslim. Which really isn't funny, but anywho, this girl was telling me that like she felt like I had more like knowledge about the real world than she does because she's never been allowed to go anywhere. And I feel that this even goes back to that thing that I mention all the time that this one dude said to me, where he was like, I hate how people raise kids these days because they either abuse and traumatize them or they coddle them so much that they're not prepared for the real world. But reality is that most people get abused. Most people, male or female, have been SA'd or have had early sexual exposure. Because for one, abuse is normal and it's considered a good thing that you're supposed to do. And it's very backed by religion. And anywho, what was I gonna say? Crap, wait a minute. But yeah, like I would ride the city bus, and not only was she not allowed to ride the city bus, although she's older than I am, and or at least she was 21 then. I don't know how old she would be now, but like, what else was I gonna? Oh yeah, and then she was like, she's scared to really walk anywhere because she's scared that like if she leaves the house, she's gonna get beat up by like homeless people or jumped or something, which is very discriminatory. But I get how when you're not allowed to do anything ever, you have these like fears that like every time you leave the house something terrible is going to happen, especially if you've never really been allowed to leave the house anyways. But yeah, so there's all that. And like something to always keep in mind though is that while it does make sense to want parents and to want a family and to want like the support system that would come with like having a decent family system, realistically everybody's half safe. And people who are actually safe and healthy typically aren't going to bring random people into their house anyways. That's why people don't adopt kids. So the people that are going to bring somebody into their house or that are going to play the let me help you lunatic manipulative games to look good or make themselves feel better, they're always going to have like a lot of overt or covert abusive mess with them, and it's always going to be some weird stuff. And that's the unfortunate thing about it. And I wouldn't even advise putting yourself in the situation. And then the last thing you want is to like end up in some chomo SA situation where you have to escape, and then they do that thing that people always do where they're like, I tried to help somebody who was homeless once, but they don't want help, and you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink, and stuff like that manipulative people like to say. So yeah, that'll be their version of the story when you try to avoid their SA cult. But yeah, and I can especially get how, like, if you're somebody who wants someone to enroll you in school and take you to the doctor and stuff like that, why you would want to get adopted. But honestly, it's not even worth it. It's really a magical thinking, maladaptive daydream. Like, the reason that a lot of people initially want to go on to CPS is because they have this, like, I'm getting bit by something. They have this maladaptive daydream in their head that they're going to, like, get adopted by a family that's nice and rich, which those two things typically don't even go together, nice and rich. But they think that's going to happen, and they, like, see themselves being taken care of, having, like, someone read bedtime stories to them. The unfortunate reality is that none of that stuff is real. For one, CPS is not an adoption agency. It's very unlikely that CPS would even remove you from the home, especially if you're actually being abused. They want people who aren't being abused, especially melanated people, that they can take from their home and put in some rich white family that's going to sex traffic them and torture them and stuff. What I like to call white supremacist taming. But it's very unlikely that you'd be removed. And at the end of the day, being in CPS custody is being homeless while being human trafficked all at the same time. But a lot of people have this, like, adoption story in their head, like CPS is some type of adoption agency, when that's really not what it is. And that's not how any of that stuff goes. And it's like having older people, like, having a lot of control and power over you. One, you're probably not going to be allowed to really go outside. You're probably going to be locked in the house. They're most likely going to be really deranged and brainwashed. Especially with the issues I talked about with people 40 plus, like, the dudes are chomos, the women are Jezebel. Like, there's a lot of stuff with that. They're Marine Kingdom agents, both of them, men and the women. Especially with the chomo side. Like, most of the people that try to or want to SA me on a daily basis, and, like, most of the sexual predators that I'm surrounded by are 40 to 79 years old. And another thing with that is you lose the freedom you have, especially if you're a street kid. You're going to lose the freedom you have to actually not be harmed by some older person that says that they have rights to do whatever they want to you. Like, when you get a parent type figure, now you have somebody over you that's probably deranged and just as traumatized, if not more than you are, that feels like they know more than you and are better than you because they're older than you, that probably isn't really that smart. And then they may, like, see you as their new punching bag and emotional support pit and all that stuff. And they're going to probably want you to take care of them in more ways than one. And whenever somebody says that they wish they were in my position, I never feel some type of way about it, because I get why. I get why I'm in the predicament that I'm in. I get why I chose what I chose to save myself. And I get why somebody would want to be in my position. And I don't think I really have anything else to say about that. And actually, I completely forgot something. So, I kind of mentioned the whole example of, like, how in general there's typically going to be, like, some weird catch or, like, side subconscious, I don't know how to put it, like, mindset that somebody will have that's even willing to, like, let people into their house. And I mentioned one example is, like, somebody that says that, like, they want to help, but they make up weird excuses. Hold up, 'cause there's, like, a fly or something on my neck. They make up weird excuses for, like, why they don't want you to, like, use their address or give out their address. And before I say a lot of things I want to say, I want to start off by saying one red flag that's always going to be a red flag is people that, well, okay, for one, I'm speaking more so, like, if you're a younger person and, like, these are older people, but I feel like this could also like be sexual predatory in general, but especially when it comes to like, hold on, there's a spider on me. Oh dang, wait a minute. Especially when it comes to chomo type situations, I would be really weary of anybody who says that they want to help or that they want to like bring you around them or bring you to stay with them, but they won't tell you their name, or they won't tell you their address, or they won't tell you like a phone number or something to like reach them. Like for example, when law enforcement forced me to the voodoo cult lady situation, she wouldn't give me like a name, number. I didn't even know the address or any of that stuff. And one of the things that you may, well, me or somebody else may think, like, initially is like, okay, so, like, if I leave the house to go, like, to the store or to, like, work or something, I would want to, like, have your number or whatever. So, like, I don't know, in case I get lost or something, I can't find my way back to the house. That may be, like, what you're thinking in these types of situations. And people who won't even give you that type of info, there's two things with this. Either they don't want you to be able to report them to somebody if you do escape or leave, or they're planning on doing something to you and they don't want you to be able to tell anybody any info for somebody to come find you, or more common actually, they don't trust you and they're weird themselves. And that's why I always mention, like, with the let me help you lunatic type stuff, and just like a lot of different weird things with like how people are, because people honestly do have control issues. Because realistically, as much as people want to pretend that like they do, people really don't have much control over their lives and like how much money they make and different stuff like that. So they try to control and torture and terrorize other people, especially youth, and they make up they use the excuse that they had the right to do it because kids are kids and children are children, and even though you're, I don't know, 30, I'm 50, so technically you're a child, stuff like that. People just want to have somebody to control and to let out their anger and all that different stuff on. So something that like a lot of people do is try to like convince me and other people like me that we have quote-unquote trust issues, or that we're scared of people and different bullcrap like that. But something that I've realized is that people who like to throw those types of accusations onto me, which is really weird because I don't really know why somebody would trust a random person, and also I have good discernment and I know that realistically, most people are not safe. Most people are half safe. And some people are like completely unsafe, but I don't really know how many people like that I've really met, but I don't even really know what would really be considered completely unsafe, to be honest. So maybe some of the people that I consider half safe are completely unsafe, but anywho, these types of people, they actually don't trust you. Like, for example, something that a lot of Let Me Help You lunatics like to do, like the Miss S lady, which I have 2 videos about that, really more than 2, but I have 2 where like I completely focus on that specific situation with Miss S and the J lady. And then what was I gonna say? Crap. Oh yeah, the Voodoo Cult Lady Part 1 that I re-uploaded from 2022. That situation. Both of those people had a lot of religious type stuff going on and paranoia. And even though they want to make me feel like I have trust issues and I'm paranoid, hold on, did that even come out right? They want to make me feel like I have trust issues and I'm paranoid. They actually were very paranoid. In fact, there was this whole situation in the Voodoo Cult Lady video, especially the part 2 that I keep forgetting to re-upload, but it's also very hard to hear due to how like I had to hide my phone to record the situation. But there was a whole situation where like she went on this like rant where she was like, thank you for telling me about the word hypervigilant, so now I can tell everybody and the doctors that I'm not paranoid, I'm hypervigilant. And she was accusing me of wanting to come back and steal her TV. I don't know what I would do with a TV sleeping outside of IHOP, but okay. But anyhow, the real woman of God, quote unquote, Miss S lady, did something pretty similar. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, she also did the whole you're gonna bring some people back to my house to steal my TV thing. So that'll make them sometimes not want to give you any info because they don't trust you. But then it still goes back to the whole thing. Like, one of the things about having a home address is like, because it gives you like a certain type of status in society, and you can use it for your ID, for like to get a job and different stuff like that. If somebody wants to bring you into their house, which I wouldn't trust anyways, but then they don't want you to use their address for anything, they don't want you to get mail, it's a lot of bullcrap with that, because one, that means they probably don't trust you, or maybe like they're living somewhere they shouldn't be. Maybe there could also be that, but I don't really know any good examples for that I can really think of. But it's like, overall, they really don't want to help, because it's like, kind of the point of having a home address is to be able to show and prove that you have a home address so you can get a job and stuff. That's like the main thing with that. If you're not going to be able to do that, then there's no point in even risking your life living with random people. And of course, there's always the people that are going to feel like if you want to accept what you can get, you don't want help, quote unquote help, or you're prideful, or you're picky, you're ungrateful, different things like that people will say. But never let people convince you that you have to like be getting used and taken advantage of and essayed and have just mind games being played with you to be able to say that you're doing what you're supposed to do, quote unquote. And as I always mention, street kids aren't seen as kids. So if I had parents, I wouldn't even like deal with the insults that I get, because when you have no support, or when you're a street kid, people expect a lot more out of you, and it's like, and then you'll have people talk about, well, let me not even go into that, because I already have videos about that. I don't want to get way somewhere else, but I wanted to mention that as well, though. Like, for example, I have the video about the whole situation with the barbershop chomo dude, which that was completely spiritually created situation. I guess maybe like situations like that would always be like a, what is it called, as above so below type situations. So me personally, I don't really feel like anybody's in to blame in that situation. I know some people will feel like differently, and as I always say, teenagers aren't children, because I know some people will say, well, quote unquote children can't consent, but it's like, I'm a child until blah 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 blah. But I don't really feel like any of that fits that situation. That was just like a situation created from the whole thing with the Marine Kingdom demons, and like them trying their hardest to keep me from getting over sexual addiction. But one of the things that I noticed anyways with that situation with the barbershop dude is that he wouldn't tell me his name, he wouldn't tell me how old he was, and yeah, so stuff like that, like either the person doesn't trust you, or they're scared that they're going to get in trouble for something, and things like that. Because I completely forgot to mention that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can mention with this. Also, like, people that don't understand the realities of the world, as I already talked about, aren't safe people, and they're not people that you would most likely be able to relate to if you're even in a situation where people see you as vulnerable enough to even be trying to, like, lure you into their house or whatever. So it's kind of like you're probably not going to be able to relate to them or have anything to talk about with them, and that could cause its own issues. And like, maybe even if they notice trauma symptoms that you have, or they just like feel like you're weird, or they just get paranoid after a while, like the situation I had with the food truck people back in Cali. Then like they may just eventually want to kick you out, or just start acting like they're scared of you for a lot of weird accusations, which for the Mexicans with the food truck back in Cali, that was like a really racial situation, as well as sexism. Because as I always mention, when you're a street kid or you're just like a kid in a bad situation, people always automatically assume that either you're a prostitute or you sell substances. And especially if you're a girl or if you're homeless, people are going to automatically assume you're a prostitute, or maybe even you got kicked out for getting pregnant, or you're a quote-unquote SLUT and WHORE and those different things, and you're fast and grown, and you sleep with grown men and all that stuff that people accuse me and people like me of, which is also women projecting their own trauma onto me that they were made to blame themselves for. But luckily I haven't even been in those types of situations, and it's not something that I'm into or that's for me. But well, it's not for anybody, but it's never been something I've been into, to be honest. And it's really not worth it. And that even goes back to how I always say, you really shouldn't straddle the fence. Because it's like, if you're straddling the fence, you're going to be constantly in survival mode, running around with chomos or boyfriends and girlfriends to like get basic needs met and stuff like that. And all of that really isn't worth it. Not even in the long run, spiritually or physically. It's all demonic rituals. It leads nowhere but to split into schizo and hell, and it's really just not worth it. And even people like unaliving you or just beating you up, because people, as I mentioned before plenty of times in my paraphilia playlist, people with like sexual issues, which of course on both ends there's paraphilias, but the perpetrating or the sexual predators and the more so perpetrator type roles, they always have issues that make them really violent. And that's why like prostitutes and stuff like that are always getting beat up and all those different things and unalived and having their organs trafficked, because for one, when you have sexual issues to this extent and limerence and all that, that's all idolatry, and it's also objectification. And you don't see people as people, you see people and even yourself as like sex objects and different things like that and coping mechanisms. So you're going to do whatever you want to people because you don't have emotions for them in any form or fashion. You don't give a crap and you don't really care about them and different things like that. And so that causes like a lot of its own issues. And I forgot what else I was going to say with that, or maybe that was it. I don't remember, but yeah, like the food truck situation that I mentioned in a couple of videos, probably not really recently, like they just started making up so many stories in my head because one, racial stuff, especially because like the way immigrants are made to feel about quote-unquote black Americans, like they're made to feel like, or well, the U.S. tells them stay away from quote-unquote black people, don't listen to anything they have to say, they're just complaining, and they have a victim complex and stuff like that. And so the immigrants feel some type of way, and so then they felt like, this is something that a lot of people are always pushing onto me, especially in Cali, and especially since being homeless. And it's never really a way that I really thought, but it did make me think, though. But they just felt like I was a quote-unquote black person with a victim complex. And then, especially because, like, they felt like they were white. When I would talk about the different racial things that would happen, like people telling me to go back to Mexico, you nigger, they felt some type of way because in their mind, they would be like, so white people feel like you're Mexican? Because if they feel like that, that means that they feel like we look like you and me no black poppy and all that stuff that Mexicans have going on. Some of them more than others, because these ones were like more white adjacent, somewhat, I guess I could say, but it's still like all bull crap and Willie Lynch syndrome house nigger programming. But it just made them feel some type of way because they felt like, so they feel like we're N-words, and I feel like you just feel like that. Nobody said that to you, even though me and other people I know literally got told that on like a daily basis by like just different white people in Cali. That's literally like the one thing you would hear all the time while walking down the street, go back to Mexico, you nigger. But that made them feel some type of way, which I really shouldn't have told them about how that had happened. But it's like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't even really expecting like for them to flip out the way that they did. And then they started feeling like I was just like, I had a black victim complex. They felt like I was paranoid because I didn't want to go into CPS because, of course, they feel like, well, you're American and you have these rights to do these things that you really don't have. You can't just walk into CPS, and I wouldn't, if you have common sense, you wouldn't want to go in there anyways to be homeless in traffic. But it's not even how that works, to be honest. But it even reminded me of like this other immigrant dude that I had met that told me that I could do anything I wanted to do because I'm American. And he had been homeless for like 5 months for the first time ever. And lo and behold, just a couple months later, he was walking around crying, and he was like, but I was told to come here to this part of California because I was told there was help and services here and that I could get help with housing. And somebody actually told him the truth. I think it was a police officer, to be honest. And he was like, well, to be honest, there really aren't any help or services for housing. At least he was honest. And then the dude started crying more. The same dude that told me the whole "you're American" bullcrap just like a couple months before this. But yeah, anywho, the Mexican people started like getting really paranoid about me, and they felt like I got kicked out for getting pregnant. It's just a lot of stuff. And these are people that initially I was supposed to like be working for, but what I realized is that their grandma was tired of watching all of their kids, which some of them weren't even like her grandkids, they were like her step grandkids or something, and she was getting tired of that. So really, they didn't really want me to work for their food truck. They wanted me to move in with them and be a babysitter, which was weird because their kids were the same age as me. And they wanted me to babysit their kids, but then they started to get paranoid, and then they were like worried about me dating their son because I'm a hoe, quote unquote, and all that stuff. And that's all why it's really just not even worth it. And like, people try to make you feel like you have trust issues, but honestly, the people that run around accusing people of having quote unquote trust issues are the type of people that are the reason that some people have trust issues and don't care to, like, I don't know, play the different games with people, which honestly are not worth playing. It all goes back to the whole thing. There is no help, and be grateful for the position that you're in if you don't have parents, to be honest. Be glad that you're not up in the house getting beat on and slapped and going through BDSM rituals as discipline. And be grateful that you have, dang, my voice is cracking, that you have orphan status. I don't know what else to say about that. But yeah.